Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Friday. We are at the end, or nearly at the end, of the first week of the international break, and the internationals have started. I sat down and watched Poland versus Scotland. Well, sorry, I sat down and watched the second half of Poland versus Scotland last night, so I didn't get to see Jakub Kiwior, who'd been taken off at halftime. Not overly sure why, because I haven't really caught up with the highlights, but I'm guessing he didn't play very well. But Poland were 2-0 up at that point, and they did get pegged back to 2-2 before Scotland conceded a very comedy 97th minute penalty to somehow lose a game that they played pretty well in and should have got something from. So it was good to actually sit down and watch some football. We've got plenty more to come over the next couple of days. We've got some games involving Arsenal players today, loads tomorrow. So there should be more and more for us to talk about. And while players have been away on their international breaks, they've been speaking to some of their national press over there, including Jurrien Timber. So we're going to look at what he's had to say about his role in the team, his position, his injury, comeback, all things like that. So some interesting stuff from Jurrien Timber. We'll round up all the internationals as well. Got lots of questions and comments from you guys. We'll see what Neto has been saying about his move to the Arsenal this summer as well. But let's start with Jurrien Timber, shall we? He's been speaking to the national press over in Holland ahead of their game, which is coming. I think they're playing tomorrow. He's been speaking to the Telegraph over there, and as I said, he spoke a lot about his injury, comeback, what it's like being like at Arsenal, but about his position as well, and his sort of having to accept not being maybe playing in his preferred position. He was asked about that. He doesn't been playing at centre back at all for Arsenal. His role at Ajax was very much sort of a right-sided centre back position, but he's having to accept a new role now. And he was asked, has that been easy for you to accept it? And he says, yes, the centre of defence at Arsenal sits with Saliba and Gabriel. Where I play doesn't matter as long as I'm playing. I can do well there as a left back, and the national team coach can also put me there. It's a really nice position to play, and I also play a lot in midfield. I have to play a lot of minutes now, and it helps me that I'm multi-functional, which I thought was quite interesting stuff because, like you said, you come to Arsenal as predominantly a centre-back, maybe, a centre-back who can play as a full-back, but you've got William Saliba and Gabriel in front of you. It's a little bit tough, obviously, but the best thing about Jurrien Timber is, as he says, he's so multifunctional. He can play in so many positions. He can play right back. He can play left back, as we see him right now. He can cover for centre back if needed. And even a couple of people here who've got in the comments talking about Timber have said, just curious if anyone else thinks Timber could genuinely be played anywhere on the pitch. Very technical and also good physically. Would love to see him in field. And Carmel underneath says, unpopular opinion here. I would play Timber at the 8 position, Calafiori at left back, and have Trossard come in as a sub if we need a goal. I presume we're talking about the Tottenham game coming up there. But those comments just show the fact that you've got some people even wanting him to play in midfield shows how multifunctional he is, as he says. It's a good mentality to have. Obviously, you come in and you got Saliba and Gabriel ahead of you. It's very, very tough to force your way into that team if you're a centre back. Calafiori is going to have the same issue now as well. And if he's going to be playing, he's going to have to accept. You'd imagine playing much more of a left back role than the sort of centre back role that we've seen him playing in the past. I think Saliba's done. I think Timber has done fine so far this season. Going forward, I would maybe like to see him do a little bit more. But in terms of defensively, I think he's looked very, very solid, and he has moved into midfield when he's needed to. And technically, we all know he's a very, very good player. So I think he's done well. He's had a solid start. It will be interesting at the end of this international break when everyone comes back, whether this is the time that Calafiori potentially moves into that left back role, though. So we will see. Talking about the injuries that he's had, he says the injured knee is stronger than the other one. Sometimes it feels a bit stiff after a match or in training, but in my head, it is no longer an issue at all. When I first trained outside, I immediately threw myself into tackles again without any fear. You can't participate half-heartedly because then things go wrong. And he does look fit, which is a really positive thing coming back after such a bad injury. Basically missed the whole of last season, of course, got back right at the end of the season. But he does look fit. He's had a good summer. There's been a couple of sort of issues when he's gone off and you thought, oh no, is that a recurrence of something to do with an injury? But it's not. It's just been cramp. He's away with the Dutch national team as well. And yeah, fingers crossed he's going to come back from that. Okay. Again, talking about this sort of demands of the Premier League as well and getting used to that. He said, my body has to get used to the intensity of top-level football and the Premier League again. It is much higher and tactically a lot is demanded of you. Your brain also has to work hard, especially during training and meetings, so that things are automatic in the matches. And I think he's, as I said, I think he's looked decent. The fact he has been without football for so long, and he is having to adjust to the intensity of the Premier League, get used to playing in the Premier League, because of course he only played one game before the injury last season. as well. And I've been impressed with Timber, I have to say. I think he's looked pretty solid. Doesn't maybe, as I say, give you that attacking threat or the nous when he's got the ball at his feet that maybe Zinchenko does when he moves into those forward positions. But defensively, it just looks very, very solid. And same as Calafiori when he has come in as well. Right, moving on to what's been going on international-wise in the last 24 hours. We've had some Arsenal players in action. Thomas Partey captained Ghana yesterday, played the full 90 minutes. They lost at home to Angola. Though injury time goal for Angola, I think it was 93rd minute, 94th minute. The first time Ghana have lost at that stadium. I can't remember the name of the stadium now, in over 20 years as well. I think Partey had a decent game by all accounts, looking at his numbers, though, despite the defeat. David Raya started for Spain, kept a clean sheet. They drew 0-0 with Serbia. Kivior, like I said, played for 45 minutes against Scotland, for Poland, before getting dragged off at halftime. They ended up winning 3-2 thanks to that last minute penalty. Got a few players in action today. Martin Odegaard, of course, fingers crossed with that injury. It'll be interesting to see if he starts or not for Norway tonight. They're playing Kazakhstan in the Nations League, and then you've got the Saliba versus Calafiori derby in Paris. Should be a decent game, that one. France versus Italy. And then, like I said, loads of games tomorrow, as well as the international break really starts to kick into gear, and we can all just sit there, fingers crossed, everyone comes back unscathed. Don't need any more injuries, do we? Especially with those big games coming up away from home after the international break. Just on Neto now, he's been given his first interview to Arsenal.com following his move from Bournemouth on deadline day. He's been speaking about his dream of joining Arsenal. You always get this, don't you, when players make moves to clubs. They always say it's been their dream to come. But it does appear that this is actually been Neto's dream. He says, look, I'm a very lucky person, to be fair. I could play in the biggest clubs, huge clubs, but I had two dreams as a kid about playing football. He said it was to play for a team in Brazil, where I grew up and became a professional footballer, and also Arsenal. And now I'm realising it. I'm a very lucky person. It came from when I was younger, watching the team, Bergkamp, Edu, Gilberto, when they won the league, and Thierry Henry. When I was growing up, my generation was watching them giving out unbelievable games, and I always dreamed to play here. I had the opportunity to train here a few times in a training ground with Brazil, and I always kept that feeling in my mind. And now I am realising it. So a dream for Calafiori. We had that one, not Calafiori, with Neto. We had it with Marino as well, didn't we? With pictures of him in his Arsenal kit when he was a young lad as well. And I've had my say on the Neto deal. I think it's a good deal for Arsenal. It's much more the sort of deal I'd have been looking at this summer, rather than going for spending basically all your money you got for Aaron Ramsdale on Juan Garcia in the summer. So I think for a year, Neto, perfectly decent signing, and then Arsenal can reassess things. And we all know they love a summer when they're chasing a goalkeeper, don't we? So it looks like there's probably going to be a similar situation next summer. Interesting to see how many games Neto's played. He's not going to be available for the Carling Cup, for the Carabao Cup. He's cup tied because he played for Bournemouth. So it'll be either Tommy Setford or, more than likely, David Raya in goal for that one. So that sort of takes away the games potentially for Neto, because you imagine David Raya is certainly going to be playing in the Champions League. So it might have to be until the FA Cup that we see Neto in action for Arsenal. We shall wait and see. Okay, a few questions and comments here. One from Our Birthday Project, who says, this summer Mikel kept talking about improving players in the squad rather than focusing on transfers. With the number of left-backs on hand, the current injury to Marino, and the lack of experience backup for Odegaard, it has to be time to give Zinny a proper run out in midfield. There aren't any on the team who can match Odegaard for technique and creativity, but Zinny is one of the best candidates, and he looks like he will otherwise be unused with Timber, Calafiori and Tommy in the mix. You obviously have to wait and see on Tommy's injury. I haven't had any update on how long that is potentially going to be, but certainly from Mikel Arteta's comments, it suggests he's not going to be back anytime soon. But look, I've agreed with this plenty of times before. I think it's a good option. It's an option I'm surprised we haven't seen yet. Maybe this is the season, because of the cover Arsenal now have at left back. Maybe this is the season that we see Zinchenko operate in the midfield more. You know, if he's going to get regular minutes this season, in my mind, that would be the best position for him to get those minutes, because it does look like they are so well stocked at left back. So it makes perfect sense. And he's technically very, very good, as you say. Creativity wise, he's decent. We know he can thread a pass, he can play a pass, he can pick a pass. And that's what potentially Arsenal might need. And if you do want to give Odegaard a rest for 20 minutes in games that are done and dusted, you've already got 3 points safely tucked away. Why not bring Zinchenko on and play him in that role for 20, 25 minutes? It makes perfect sense to me, I have to say. Johnny here simply says, can Ethan cover for Odegaard? So this was obviously in response to, I think, probably what myself and James Benge were talking about yesterday in Inside Arsenal Extra Time. If you haven't seen that yet, you can go down. If you're listening on podcast, it's below you. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find it on the channel there as well, where we were sort of giving our big assessment of the transfer window and how the squad pans out. And we had a big discussion about the fact that there is no real natural cover for Odegaard in that squad. And that was the one thing that really, really worried us. And as Johnny points out, look, Ethan can definitely cover for Odegaard. The only issue I have there, and I want Ethan to get minutes this season. I think it's really important that he gets minutes. But if Odegaard gets injured for 2 months, I think you're asking an awful lot on a very, very young kid who's never really played before to come in and cover for the captain. You've got to take the kid's development into account here. And, you could do more harm than good by making him play that role. So I think he could cover in that position. He's certainly an option to come on and get some minutes in that position. But if there's a long-term issue, which hopefully there's not, touch wood, for Odegaard, I feel like you have to have a different option than just throwing Ethan there and letting him do that for 6 weeks, 2 months. I think that's just an awful lot to ask of such a young player, no matter how talented he is. And look, he is a very talented player. There's no doubt about that. And he's certainly someone I want to see a lot more of, as I've spoken at times about so far this summer. I thought it was really important that there was a pathway left for Ethan with all the summer signings who are going to come in. I just thought the club needed to take that into account. And it looks like they've done that. But yeah, I wouldn't be playing him over and over again, 6 weeks, 2 months. I think it's just asking too much for a young kid. And hopefully he'll get some minutes. Same with Miles Lewis-Skelly and players like that. But you just got to build him up. I look at Ethan and I think, he can have Smith Rowe's minutes. He can have Fabio Vieira's minutes. It's not about really putting too much demands on such a young kid. And that's it from me today. Very short one. Where we at? Just over 12 minutes now. Pretty short one. We are in the international break, of course. Not too much to talk about. So enjoy the rest of your Friday. Enjoy the start of weekend. I hope you have a very good one. I'll be back tomorrow. Well, I might be back tomorrow. I might miss out tomorrow because it's my daughter's birthday. And I'm going to be rushing around. Got to go and pick up the birthday cake and all stuff like that tomorrow morning before the birthday party, which is an early morning one as well at a trampoline park. So busy morning for me on dad duties. If I can't get a video done, then apologies, but I will try and get something done at some point tomorrow, maybe even if it's not the usual sort of mid-morning slot. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But until then, have a great day, everyone. Enjoy the weekend. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.